All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Performance Virtual Chapter. This is our first meeting for the year, getting January started off here in 2015. So a little bit about us. My name is Ryan Adams. I will be your moderator for the day. I am also the president of the chapter. I'm on Twitter as @RyanJAdams, so if you're on Twitter, I encourage you to go follow me there. The chapter itself is also on Twitter, so if you want to go follow us, we're @SQLPass_PVC. We have a hashtag we're using as well, so #PassPVC is our hashtag. So if you've got questions, those types of things, you want to have an active discussion during the presentation, by all means, make use of that hashtag. We encourage that. Of course, our website is performancesequelpass.org. We've also got a discussion list, so it's a Google group. It's open and free for anybody to join. It's called perfvc at googlegroups.com, so you can go out to Google Groups and you can join that. If you've got a performance-related question, you can shoot an email out to the list. And we've got a lot of people on that list, so you will usually get an answer. So if you've got something, we encourage you to take use and or make use of that list for yourself. It can be a very handy tool to have. And our email address, if you want to get in touch with anybody helping run the chapter, you can send an email to performance@sequelpass.org. So for technical assistance today, if you are having any technical issues, there is a raise hand button in the bottom of your panel. You can click the raise hand button and we will do our best to help you out there. Once the presentation window, you can zoom in and out on that presentation window. Usually it's up there at the top. You can change that zoom level if you're having trouble seeing things and you want to make it a little bit bigger. There's also a questions pane, and I will warn you that the panel will slide over to the right a little bit. And it kind of collapse itself. So in order to see the questions pane, you'll have to click the red arrow to move that back out again. And then you'll be able to see the questions pane down there at the bottom. So if you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and type your questions in there and we'll get those answered for you. A reminder that audio is only available to computer speakers, so there is no dial-in number for today's presentation. We want to thank our sponsor, which is Confio, which is now part of SolarWinds. Thanks to them sponsoring our chapter, we're able to give away a $100 Amazon gift card that will be taken random out of everyone that has joined today, and we will notify the winner within a day or two after the meeting. So we definitely want to thank Confio for sponsoring our chapter and making that possible. For today's presentation, got my friend Sean McCown. He's going to, assuming he lets me call him his friend, he's going to be talking today about a new tool that he's been working on developing. Pretty exciting tool, very neat stuff here. Can't wait for you guys to see this on a better way to help you re-index and handle your indexes. So Sean is here in the Dallas area with me. And Sean, with that, I'm going to change it over and make you the presenter. I will let you describe yourself in more detail.
I'm getting there. Am I showing my screen?
Yes.
You see the Minion Reindex right there?
Yep, looks good.
Excellent. Okay. I don't know. As far as describing myself in more detail, I think you about said it all. No, I'm Sean McCown, for those of you that can't read that main slide. I'm not going to tell you too much about myself because if you didn't know, you wouldn't be here now, would you? But mostly because we've got a lot to cover, and I have a hard time covering this topic in an hour a lot of times. So let's just go ahead and get started, and you guys can read up on me if you're really, really curious. Okay, so Minion Reindex. First and foremost, why a new Reindex tool? I think the biggest answer to this is flat out, we just weren't happy with anything that was out there. We found that other solutions didn't scale well, that they didn't have the functionality that we needed, and they really only catered to, I guess I would call it, for the most part, the lowest common denominator, right? Nobody that really needs any specialization or any custom tuning got any love at all. So we decided to write our own and, of course, make it free. So, and I've got Jen sitting here with me, so sometimes I'll reach over and sometimes I'll lean over and talk to her while you guys are here. Hey, how you doing, Jen?
Hey.
See, just like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and what I want to do is I want to take you guys through absolutely everything. So what you'll do is you'll start here on our page, midnightsequel.com/minion, and if all you want to do is download it, then you can download it right here. Now this says 1.0. We're actually releasing 1.1 tomorrow. It's got a couple bug fixes, and it's got the initial starting of our availability group portion, where as of 1.1 you'll now be able to run it on an AG, and it'll only reindex the primary. So we've got a lot more functionality coming with that we're very excited about in version 2, and you will see the beginning of that functionality in backup and Minion Backup 1.0 that will be released in just a few weeks. So keep a lookout for that. Here we've got a lot of resources for you. You can download the documentation. You can watch the recorded webinar that we did before when we first released right before PASS. And we've got some tutorial videos. I'm going to go ahead and click on that on Midnight DBA, where you can get individual videos about individual functionality as well if you want a little brush up or if you want a little bit deeper than we're going to go today. You can also submit a feature or a bug request, and of course you can just flat out contact us if you need us with something. And somewhere there is a, oh yeah, and you can sign up for email updates as well. And there's a blog somewhere too, right, Jen, that we write stuff to? Where is that?
Same website under articles.
Same website under articles. There you go. So there's a blog where we, and in the blog we will quite often give you specialized solutions for different scenarios that you have, like different ways to order your tables and stuff like that. So any worthwhile question that somebody shoots us, we'll usually shoot it in a blog. Okay, so with that said, let's say we've just downloaded it, and what you're going to get when you download is a folder that looks a lot like this. We've got a lot of documentation. We've got help in 4 different formats, and 3 of them are right here. And then you've got some queries that we'll use to help you, and we'll talk about some of this a little bit more. But one of the big ones we've got is we help you estimate how much time is remaining in the routine. So if you've got a really large database and you don't know how much time it's going to be, what we'll do is we'll look at the log and see how long this set of tables took last time, and then we'll estimate how long they took, and we'll estimate how long, how much longer it's going to be. So we try to help you out here with these really long implementations, or I mean with these really long reindexes. So with that, just here's what the help file itself looks like. We've got our little Minion-y guy right here, and we've got 63 pages of documentation that tell you absolutely anything and everything you want to know about it. Different configurations, different how-tos, we've got troubleshooting, we've got different scenarios, we've got all kinds of things in there, so definitely check out the help topic. Now, as long as we're on help, let me see if I can find the screen I want. We've also got, remember I said that the help had 4 formats, and those were only 3 of them. Well, we've got an integrated help inside Management Studio as well. So if you just call the minion.help.sp, which I can't do right now because I haven't installed it yet, because I wanted to take you through an install. So let's go ahead and install this thing real quick. I've got to create my demo database. This is how you know that, that you're doing a flat-out bare-bones install. And let me go ahead and switch to that. So I usually put it in master, but you can put it anywhere. Let me make sure I'm on the right box. There we go. So now I'm going to run this. And that's it. You're done. I've created 2 jobs for you, and I've created all the tables and the metadata that you need to do a basic reindexing. So if your needs are fairly slim, right, if you don't have a lot of need to customize, you're done. You can run that on your server, and it's got 2 jobs that are created, and you're finished. If you want different job times, then you can just go alter the job times. But this installer, regardless of the database that you're in, it will create the jobs to point at that database. So that's always good news. Now let's see. Okay, so this is the second help. And you see at the end of the installer, it brings up the help, right? So we've got our little logo there. I'm going to show that off because it took me a long time to get that done. And so calling help, if you don't know anything at all about help, let me go ahead and switch to that other one, or was I already there? Nope, here I am. Let me get in the right database, Minion demo. Let me connect to it first. There we go. Now Minion demo, good. Now if you don't know anything about it, you can just call blanket minion help, and it'll give you instructions. And it tells you the products that are installed. Right now, I only have Reindex installed, but later, in a few weeks when we release backup, it'll have the exact same backup, or it'll have the exact same help system. And when we release CheckDB later this year, it'll fold in here as well. So you'll have 3 things listed here. But right now, you've got just Reindex. So if I want to see the topics that are available, then I just come down here and I get a very nicely formatted list of the topics that I can get help on. And if I remember correctly, Jen, didn't you fit everything that's in the help doc into this online documentation here?
That's right.
Yeah, so everything that's in that doc is in here available to you, except you can write search routines against it, right? So let's look at how to run code before and after a reindex. So what you would do is anything that's over here, if I want to look at a how-to topic, I would just highlight that how-to topic and put it in here along with the module name. And you can see that it gives you that help down here. It gives you an example of how to run it down here. So when I run this right here, and then you can see I get copious help with insert statements, update statements, and explanations and everything that I need to make that happen. Let's run just one more. What's a good one to run? Let's run one of the SPs because I think that's pretty cool. Let's run index make DB. There we go. Cool. There we go. And you can see again a very nicely formatted list, and it gives you the parameters and an explanation of the parameters, and then a little bit of advice down here, tells you where to find the printable documentation and so on. So a really nice help system inside Management Studio, and you don't have to go to the web, you don't have to go back to the docs. We provide that stuff for you, but it's certainly not necessary. Okay, now let's start looking around. We've got the actual demo here now. Let me use that. Let me comment that out so I don't try to do something stupid again. Okay. First and foremost, you're going to see that there's an index settings DB table. This whole thing revolves around overrides. So the database table, or the settings DB table, is where all of this starts. And this is where you get all of your settings. And this is the only table that has any data in it when you install Minion. Remember, this is a fresh install. So let's look at some of these columns, and you're going to see the power in here. Minion default is where you get your settings if you don't have any other database settings in here. And I'm going to show you some database settings in a minute. So do you want to exclude the database from reindexing? Since this is the default, probably not. What reindex group order and what reindex order do you want? So you can order the databases in any order you want, depending on, or going by 2 different tiers. And I've got a really good demo that will show you that in a minute. What reorg threshold and rebuild threshold do you want, and what fill factor do you want? Now this applies to the entire database, right? So we have table level overrides as well that we're also going to talk about in a minute. But every indexing option is available to you here. We've got pad index, whether or not you want them to be done online, sorted in temp DB, what you want the maxed up option to be, compression, whether you want to get the row count of the tables or not. So a lot of these aren't necessarily information that you need to do a reindex, but we're not concerned with just the reindex. What we're concerned with is the entire life cycle of you troubleshooting reindex and managing reindex and using the data from the reindex to troubleshoot other problems. So we allow you to get the row count for the table so that maybe you could use that to see how much your tables are growing, or to estimate, more importantly in the realm of reindexing, to help you, and we're going to write something like this for you for version 2, to help you estimate how long your reindexes are going to take as your tables grow. We help you get a post frag level. And so this is really interesting because you know how you got some of those tables sometimes that never really reindex fully. No matter what you do, they only go to like 30% or 35% or 20%. Well, here we show you how effective your reindexes are being by getting the frag level right after the reindex is done, so you can see how effective it is. And if you've got a whole bunch of tables that are being reindexed every single day because they're only defragging to say 33%, and you've got your rebuild set at 20%, well, maybe you should raise this. Maybe you should raise the threshold over here up to like 50% to give them a chance to actually fragment, so that they're not needlessly processed every day. The stat scan option. When we rebuild stats, when we do a reorg, I let you put in the stat scan option here, and that would be something like, you know, full scan, right? Or allow you to do it by a percentage. So whatever goes inside of those parentheses on the update statistics is what you would put in here. And then ignore dupe key and no stats and allow row locks, allow page locks, all of this stuff that you can do in a reindex. Here are your 2014 options: wait at low priority, the duration in minutes, and abort after wait. Push to Minion. If you have Minion Enterprise, which is our enterprise management tool, then this allows you to upload those statistics, or the reindex statistics, up to the centralized repo, and then you can not only report off of that stuff centrally, but you can also manage it centrally as well. So you don't have to go around to all of your boxes if you want to change settings. You can change them in a central location and then push them back down. Log index physical stats. So when you call the index physical stats DMV, we allow you to log those raw stats. So if there's a deeper stat that you want to look at, if you want to look at some data that's not in the log, you can set this, and this will be done. Remember, this is the settings DB table, so this will be done for every single table by default, right? So right now, since it's null, that doesn't mean anything. It just means it's not gonna. Null is the same thing as 0 here, right? But we'll log those raw stats for you, and then you can go back and investigate it if you want. The index scan mode, do you want it to be limited or do you want it to be detailed? And right now, null means limited, but you could switch that to detailed, and you would do a detailed scan for all of the tables. Pre-code and post-code. I'm going to show you an excellent example of this a little bit later, but right now this is DB postcode, or pre-code and post-code. So before it processes the database, you can set it to run any database pre-code or any database post-code afterwards. And then we've got a table pre-code and a post-code, so anything that you want to run before and after all of the tables. Log progress, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. Log retention in days, I set that to 60. So that's how much history you're going to keep in the log. And as you're going to see when we go down to the table, to the settings table, it gets even better than that. So log location, again, that's going to be either local or it's going to be repo if you have Minion Enterprise, and then that's another Minion. Now, recovery model. I like this one because sometimes you need to keep your database in full mode, but you've got large enough indexes or a large enough database that it generates too much log activity, so maybe you want it to be put into bulk mode for your reindexes. So all you've got to do is put the bulk logged in here, put the name of the reindex of the recovery model that you want to put in here, and Minion Reindex will change it for you before the database is processed, and then change it back to what it was before when it's finished. So you can really minimize your logging. So you can switch it from full to bulk logged and have it switch back to full, and really minimize the logging on a lot of these. And include usage details. This is one of my favorites. I'm going to say that a lot today because it's all a lot of my favorite, right? But these are the stats that you get from the index usage details, right? The DMV. So that's the amount of user seeks and user scans and user updates and stuff like that. So you can keep track of the index usage here, and just by turning this on, you can keep track of all of that stuff, and then you can mine it for the data later, and you can see what your most used indexes are, what your heaviest hit tables are, and we just include that for you. So the index settings table is pretty much the same thing with the addition of a table name and a schema name, and all of the other columns are the same. And so what this gives us is this gives us table level overrides. Before, that was the default if there is nothing in this table. But if you enter a table into this table, if you enter a schema and a table in here, then that allows you to override that other setting. So you can easily exclude specific tables, or you can very easily regroup tables and do tables in a specific order, or give them different thresholds or different fill factors, or pad index, or only do this one table as a sort in temp DB while all the other ones aren't. You got a really big table, change the max DOP option, change the data compression. Maybe I don't want to get a row count for one of the tables, or I only want to get a row count in a post frag level for one of the tables or a handful of tables. Or maybe I want to update the stats with a full scan only on this one, or I don't want to do a full scan only on this one. But you're starting to see the flexibility here, and I might add that all of this stuff is possible without adding a single new job or a single new step to a job, right? Whenever I say new job, that's either job or job step because there's not much difference. So being able to do all of this stuff in a single job and being able to reconfigure it with very simple update statements and insert statements, just it gives your life back as far as a DBA and a very large shop goes. So let's see what else. You can choose to log index physical stats at the per table level. You can get the index scan mode. So where I see this quite often is where I've got like one or two tables that I want to use the detailed option for instead of the limited option, and I'll put those in here and set them to scan mode detailed, and then I'll get what I need from them and everybody else gets the default option. Now this is where you can override the table pre-code and post-code. I find that quite often it's not very reasonable to run pre and post code for every single data and for every single table in the database. Most often you only want to do it for a handful of tables with some sort of special scenario. I'm going to cover one of those later actually. And so here's where you would define that for those tables. Whether or not you want to log progress for that table, log retention days. If you've got a special table that you want to keep longer in the log, so let's say that it's a really important table and you want to keep a lot more data on it, we'll just raise it to 180 days or 365 or whatever. And then the rest of them will get their default 60 days and this one will get that. And index usage details. If there's a table that you do or don't want to follow the default here in the database in the settings DB table, then of course set that right here. So there you go. That's an overview of those two tables. We'll cover a couple of the other tables a little bit later. But right now let's look at excluding a DB. And the only thing it takes is to set exclude equal to 1. So I really don't want master temp. Here, let's go ahead and look at something. I'm going to call the index mate master, and the index mate master is the one that makes all of these decisions. This is where it decides whether or not to include certain DBs, right? So I'm going to call it with statement only equals 1. Clearly that only gives me a statement. So as I do all, there we go. Now, here are the statements that it produces, and you can see that it calls minion.indexMateDB with the database name. It calls that with all the options for all of the databases included. So it'll just run through those and process them as it needs to. But I also just give you a nice little list here to show you which ones. So somewhere in here, if I can find it, there is a master temp. There it is, and I don't want to include that one. So let's go ahead and insert an exclusion row for that. And let's go ahead and take a look at settings DB. There we go. So I've got my Minion default, and I've got my master temp DB that I just put in there, and you can see that I'm excluding it. Now, all of the other stuff here doesn't matter, right, because it's excluded, so it doesn't matter what the rest of these say. But if this weren't an exclusion, if I wanted to change the order, or if I wanted to change the fill factor or the default threshold for this database, then know that every one of this database's settings comes from this row. I no longer use the Minion default row for anything at all. And the reason for that is very simple. A lot of these guys include null as a valid option. And null just means that it won't be included in the reindex statement, so whatever SQL defaults to is what it's going to use. So, you know, how do I know whether or not your maxdop option was meant to be left null or was meant to be 6 or what? How do I know that you didn't make a mistake and accidentally filled something in or didn't fill something in? So rather than make that kind of mistake and try to guess what you intended, because there's no way for me to divine what you intended, I just take every one of the settings from this row. So the easiest way to do it would be to copy this row directly to here and then make the changes that you want to make. So let's see. Okay, with that in mind, let's go back and let's run this again. And you'll see that the master temp is gone. There we go. Let me change this back. Okay, now let's talk about ordering databases, because this is really this is really an important feature, and it's one of my favorite. So we're going to order 2 databases. Which 2 did I pick? I picked client test, and I picked install test. So both of these guys have to have entries in the DB table. There we go. And now let's look at the DB table. There, I've got 2 more entries, and you notice how these guys say 10 while the rest of them say 0. And that's because this is what we call a weighted system, right? So the ones that are, the ones with the bigger numbers have more weight, and so therefore they're more important. I could have counted down, but I usually find that what happens is this weighted system is a lot easier to manage because when you, in other words, it's a weighted system versus a priority system. That's the word I was trying to find. Because let's say that you add a new DB and somebody says, this one's really important, we have to reindex it first, but you've already got a bunch of ordering in there. That means that you now have to write a statement that switches the ordering of all of the other ones so that you could move this one to the top. Whereas you can always move it one more. If I've already got everything up to 100, then I can make this next one 101. If another one comes in after that, then I can make the next one 102 or 120, right? So it's just a lot easier as you add new databases and want to change the order. It's easier to add things like that than it is to slip something in at the beginning and then have to renumber everything else. It's not the end of the world. It's just a little bit easier. So the highest number will win. Now we're going to talk about reindex order in a minute, but right now this is group order. So and let's go ahead and take a look at that too. Now you'll see that client test and client install test are being brought up first. So they're going to be processed first. Okay, now where are we? Okay, now let's do a full-blown ordering. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so now what I'm going to do in this full-blown ordering is I'm going to do a lot of inserts here, and I'm going to get them from the sys databases table, and I'm going to set them all to reindex group order 5. And this is where they're all like Minion. So I want to order all of the Minion databases and give them a group order and give them a reindex group order of 5, and then I want to bring in everything that's not like Minion and doesn't equal any of these guys, and I want to give them a reindex group order of 0. So I'm just going to do a full-blown ordering and take everything on here. There we go. So now you can see in the DB table, now I've got all of this. I've got 0, 0, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then a bunch of zeros. So let's take a look and see what that does to our run. You can see that it starts with these 2 because they're 10, and then it moves on to all of the Minions, and then it moves on to the DB ones and so on. Okay, excellent. Now, let's do some updating. What I want to do now, actually, let me just run this update statement, and then I'll explain to you what I want to do. Or I'll show you what we did here. Of course, it's an incorrect syntax. I just ran it. Why does it give me an incorrect syntax on a comma? Does it give me an incorrect syntax?
It's not the comma, it's the parenthesis.
Ah, yes, you're right. Somehow that got snuck in there. Thanks, Ryan. Jen just jumped up here to bail me out. There we go. Okay, so now if I look here in the databases, you can see that I've got some of these have Reindex group order 5, but look, even here in the Reindex group order, in fact, let's just go ahead and run this, and it'll, when they get in order, it'll be made a lot easier. There we go. So now look what I have. Now I'm ensuring with this Reindex group order that these groups of databases get run first, but then within each one of those groups, they get run in a specific order. So for group 5, which is from here to here, they're run in exactly this order, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So I'm only concerned, as it turns out, with these first 5, and then the rest of them can be run in any order they want. So that's what I mean by 2 levels of ordering. I can order groups of databases. I want this group of 10, then this group of 10, then this group of 10, then this group of 5. But within those groups, I can order them as well so that I get precisely the exact order I need. And that's very powerful. Okay, let's get past that. Now let's start looking at some tables. How much more time do I have, Ryan?
You've got 25 minutes.
Okay. How much time did you want to leave for questions?
You know, depends on how many we get toward the end, but, 5 to 10, somewhere in that area.
Okay. Yeah.
I do have a question for you now, though, while we're here.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the Minion reindex is interrupted, does it resume where it left off the next time it's executed?
If it's interrupted, no, it does not. I'll just say no, it does not. There is a way that you can make it do that, but it's not coded into the solution. I'm thinking about that for version 2, but I'm still not sure whether I want to do it or not. But yes, there is a workaround for it that actually isn't all that difficult. So I could do it, yes.
I mean, technically, it's almost the way it is today, right? I mean, if you've got an index job that you wrote that's a T-SQL agent job and something cancels it, and you have to restart it.
Yeah, exactly. But what you could do is if you wanted it to pick up where it left off, say, at a specific time, right? You could say you could insert a step beforehand that would make sure that you could look at the log table and see the ones that didn't have complete by them, and then you could put those at the front and make sure that they got added to the list. You could most definitely do something like that. So there you go. Let's see. Like I said, with the way that we do things, there's a workaround for almost everything. So let's go ahead and insert something into the, what am I saying? Into the settings table. And what we're going to do is we're going to exclude the fragment table because for some reason I've decided I don't want that. Now, really, something really interesting here. I came across this in my beta testing. Really quick, this thing has been really, really battle tested. One of our beta testers, who is still running it, by the way, and very happy with it, I was just in contact with him last week, is running this on a database with over 350,000 tables in it. And he says it runs like a champ. He's absolutely thrilled with it. And there's another reindexing solution out there that he never could get to run. The one that he was using before, he never could get it to finish. He always had to kill it after 24 hours. So we scale, and we scale really well. I've got somebody else who's using it against, oh God, it's something like a 14 terabyte database. And he only picked it up a few days ago, so I'm still waiting on results for that. But I'll be happy to put that in the blog when I get the results back. So anyway, what was I saying before I got off on that tangent, Jen?
I don't know.
That's okay. So now let's take a look at this one entry we have in the table. There we go. Oh, I remember. So he had this huge database that had mostly a log table. It almost never got queried, but because it kept getting logged to, the fragmentation was pretty high, but it almost never got queried, so he didn't want to reindex it. And the reindexing routine took something like 17 hours. It was ridiculous, and most of it was that table. So he added an exclusion for that table because he just didn't care about it, and it took it down to just a few minutes. So this is the kind of power you can have with this. And I'm going to add again without adding any extra jobs. This is the most important thing to us. We don't want you to have 30 jobs to manage your reindexes. And actually, I'm in some pretty big shops, and the biggest shop I've been in, I noticed that they had over 70 jobs just to manage their reindexes for all the different exclusions and different special things they had to have for their different databases. I put Minion reindex in there, and it went down to like 5 or 7, something like that. So there's a huge number of jobs that don't have to be created when you go with a solution like this. Okay, let's see. I just excluded that table. And with that in mind, I will go ahead and do this. I'm going to take that. That's the demo, if I can find the demo. There we go. I'll paste that in here. And then I'll say statement only equals 1. Very good. And then go. And this is a really good time to talk about that, I think. And so you'll see that the fragment table is not in here because I excluded it. I'm going to talk about that output more in a minute. So now, let's see, that was full-blown ordering. That was the database stuff. This is the table stuff. Okay, great. I'm going to turn this back on. I'm going to turn exclude 0 back to 0. I could just delete it from the table, but I didn't. No, I'm not ready to talk about this. Somebody remind me to go back and talk about the pre-code and the post-code. And in fact, I think I've got it a little bit later. So let's talk about table ordering. I want to make sure that fragment 4 gets done first because that's a really, really important table to me. And if you look here, you'll see that fragment 4 is last. So I really, really need that to be first. So I'm going to insert that in there, and I'm going to give it a reindex group order of 10 because I want it to be higher than the others, right? It's more important. If I could get that collapsed. There we go. There we go. I got that. Now if we look at the table, I'm click happy for some reason. There we go. You can see that it's got a reindex group order of 10, so it should reindex before anything else. Let's take a look and see if that holds true. And there it is. Now fragment 4 is number 1. So you know how, well, let's see. No, I'll save that for the end because I've got a demo on that. Those of you that have been to my presentations know I'm a little scatterbrained, so forgive me. Let's make sure that we are that we've got our demo database fragmented, so I'm going to fragment that real quick. And while we're waiting for that, it'll take about 15 seconds. Are there any other questions, Ryan?
Yeah, a couple actually. Let's see. How do we handle indexes that cannot be rebuilt online?
Right. So there are a couple different ways you can do that. Let's see. By default, the routine will switch it from offline back to online, I think, if you try to do an online that has lob data in it, right? But there are a couple different ways you can do that. Here, in the index option for index make master, you can say I either want to do all indexes that can be done offline, or all indexes that have to be done offline. So you could. This is one of those rare cases where you have to set up a new job. And by the way, we're fixing that in version 2, where you can say I want to do only my online reindexes every day, and then on Sunday in the middle of the night I want to do my offlines, right? But or you can set up an exclusion in the index settings table, and then you can have it done offline right there. So that would be either on or off. So the online option is either on or off. But by default, it'll do whatever it'll do the default, right? So if you leave both of these null, then it won't do any of them online. But I believe if you have it set to on and you accidentally get an index that is off, I think, you know, now I can't remember because I can see it both ways. I can't remember if I went ahead and switched it online or if I left it offline because I don't want to throw in an online option on you when you're expecting it to be done online. So I think the second one is true. I think I won't process it if it's done, if it needs to be done offline. I think I answered that question.
Yeah, I think so. What about padding indexes?
What about it?
Someone says, he says, I notice you seem to have index padding on most or maybe all the time. Any comments on how to decide if pad index can be on versus off?
I prefer to have it on because it does the non-leaf levels of the index. It keeps the fill factor for those levels of the index. Is there a way to decide? Not really. I always turn it on for my personal databases, so I made it turned on here, but I have no guidance on that. No.
Okay, I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Did you get the Pane postcode?
Not yet. Okay, let's see. I was just doing something. Oh yeah. So let's go ahead and look at the statement output for this, for the statement only. So, of course, you can just highlight this and use it to run your reindexes. But I do more than that. I give you the database, the table, the index name. I give you the reorg and the rebuild threshold, and I give you the current fragmentation level along with the statement. So just to give you a list of statements isn't good enough. Maybe it's just barely over the threshold. Maybe you want to look for the ones that are a lot higher than others. So you can see that this one's really important to reindex, you know, versus this one that's only at 24%, right? So I would just, you know, copy that into another window and then just run them hit or miss as I wanted to, right? You can pick and choose at that point. But the downside to that is it won't be logged, right? Because you can see that they're just manual reindex statements. There's nothing I can do about that. So now let's go ahead and run that defrag, and we'll take a look at some of the logging, I think. Yeah, we will. And I think you guys are really going to like the logging we've got for you. We blew logging out of the water. Didn't we? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are two log tables. Let's take a look at index main log first. So I'll give you the execution date time, the status, the database name, and then the parameters that you called the job with. All, whether or not to run prepped or prepped only, we'll talk about that. Reorg mode, see those guys correspond with these guys right here. The number of tables that was processed, that were processed, yes, that's better. The number of indexes processed and the number of indexes that were rebuilt versus the ones that were reorged. Whether or not the recovery model was changed, what the recovery model was when it started and what it was changed to, the version of SQL, any database pre-code and post-code, the begin and end time for that post-code, any table postcode. I think that'll be called later. The DB code, pre-code and post-code runtime in seconds, and the execution time or the finish time and how long the entire database took to process. So that's just your high level, but I think that's pretty cool to give the number of tables processed and the types of operations that took place on each one of them. Now for the details, and the details are where it's really going to shine. So again, execution date time, this matches the execution date time in the other table. The status, the table, the schema, all of this stuff you guys can see for yourselves. I give you the scan mode, what the online operation was, what the thresholds were, the fill factors, what the level of fragmentation was, the statement that was run, the ordering, so you can see, you know, as things change throughout, right? Here's the pre-code and post-code at the table level, what time the reindexing operation began and ended, and what time and how long it took in seconds. Row count, here's the row count for all the tables. the post frag level. Now you notice how I also get how long it took to get the frag level for each one of these, because we know that it can take a long time to pull fragmentation stats for an individual index or for a table. And if you notice that your reindex routine is taking like 7 hours, you can look in here and see what's taking up the bulk of your time. As a matter of fact, isn't that one of the queries that we wrote in there?
I don't remember by now.
It might be one of the queries that we provide you that gives you a percentage of how much of a percentage each one of these operations takes. But if not, then it's a query that it will either try to write you for version 2, or you could write it yourself and send it to us. So update stats. And so we update stats on defrag, and of course we give you the choice if you remember in the log table. So this is how long that took in seconds. The update stats that was statement that was run, any pre or post code, again, pre, post code, begin time, end time, all of that stuff. And this is where we get into the user seeks and user scans. I thought I had some of that data filled in, but you can see all of that index usage detail data in here that gets filled in, and I pulled pretty much all of them, and a warnings column. I'm not using the warnings column right now, but I will in the next version, where it's nothing that failed, but maybe there's a warning of something that you need to be made aware of, like maybe you've got hypothetical indexes, or you've got indexes disabled, or something like that. I haven't decided everything I'm going to put in there, but it doesn't mean that the reindex failed. It just means that these are things that you need to be made aware of. That's about it. So there you go. That's the logging. And let's go ahead and let's raise a table's threshold. Let me frag my database again. That takes about 15 seconds. I'll take questions in the meantime if we have any new ones.
So a good follow-up on the log is he says, in the log detail, can you include the user ID of the person or job that ran the index and whether it was manual or scheduled execution?
Yeah, I can mark that down for version 2.
All right, very good. Oh, and here's a great question. What's the difference between Minion and Minion Enterprise?
Right, so it depends. It's amazing how it's already got its own little subset of nomenclature. But the way this works is Minion Enterprise is our full-blown enterprise management solution, where we do all kinds of stuff from a central standpoint. We do log growth and user logins and I can't even name everything that we do right now. It's a very huge product that we do all kinds of things to manage your boxes centrally. Minion Reindex, Minion Backup, and Minion CheckDB will fold into those, but they will always be free. It's just that if you want them to become part of the solution, there will always be something coded into them so that they work with it. But Minion Enterprise allows you to manage servers from an enterprise level from a single location, so you don't have to go around to 900 servers and make a change, or down to 20 servers and make a change. You can do everything from a central location. But and of course it's a paid product, and you're welcome to contact us about that. But these solutions will always be free. They just fold into that and give you even more. So we give you enterprise level stats and enterprise level reporting on backups and reindexes and stuff like that.
Dude, that might be handy at the end if you throw up a link, because there was somebody saying, is there a page that we can read up on that to see the differences and stuff?
Well, it's not that there are differences. It's that they're two different products. Right? Reindex is a reindexing tool, and Minion Enterprise is an enterprise management tool with a lot of modules in it. And these are the only 3 that we're giving away for free. But we'll try to come up with something to give you. I've got a nice bulleted list of all the stuff that Minion Reindex or that Minion Enterprise does. So I'll shoot that up on the blog. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay, we were doing something. Oh yeah, so we were going to. Did we already exclude a table? Yeah, we excluded a table. So now I forgot what we were going to do. We were going to raise the threshold for a table. That's right. So I've got fragment 4 which I believe may still be in the, excluded. Anyway, I want to move on to something else because I think we're running short on time. But I was going to show you how changing the threshold of a table would make it fall out if it raises its threshold, but it will. You guys believe me, I know. This is a really cool demo right here. I love this one. So what we've got here, in fact, what I want to do is I want to allow page locks off on this guy, and I hope that the demo comes out the way it's supposed to. I've already fragmented the table, so now I'm going to run the thing if I can find. Okay, I got that. Okay, I need to run the reindex now. Statement only equals 1. I need to run it with statement only equals 0, so let me go over here. Demo statement only equals 0. Just when you think that you have the thing nice and smooth. There we go. So it defrags really fast. Let's see if I got what I needed from both of these guys. Oops. If I could hit that button. And it didn't because it didn't. That's... Let me delete that. Let me do this again. Sorry guys, like I said, just when you think you get a demo worked out just right, you do something dumb. It'll only be a couple seconds. Yeah, you know, the metaphysical couple, not the actual couple. Is that metaphysical?
No, philosophical couple.
Yeah, philosophical, that's better. Okay, so now let's try to run this guy again and see if I can get my error. There we go. It's not doing it again. Well, fine then. So, it worked when I did it at 12:30. I know, right? Let me look at the table and see if... Oh. That's the problem. I was in that wrong database. Let me get this guy out of here again. Sorry, let's do one more round of fragmenting. Now that I'm in the right table, or now that I'm in the right database, and let's see if we can get that to come out right. We've only lost a minute and a half. No, not even that. 45 seconds for each one of them, give or take. For all of them. Okay. Now let's go here. I hate you so much. Okay, so I know. Let it go. Let me see which one of these it was supposed to be for. Oh, that's the problem. Sorry. One more time, I promise. This will be it. If I can't do it now, I've still got that table excluded. I took the wrong table out of the exclusion. So, how you guys doing today? You know, it wouldn't be a demo with me if I didn't do something harebrained like this.
Hey, so does version 1.1 take into account SQL 2014's new locking functionality?
Version 1 did.
All right.
I even showed it to you. That's okay, though. Here we are. Let's try this one more time. And I do mean one more time. I hate you so much. Fine. Okay, what I was trying to show you, and for some reason I just can't get it to error now. Unless I didn't do this. You know, there comes a time when you're like, damn it, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. Okay, I'll pick that up in a minute. I'll come back if I've got extra time. What I wanted to show you was that in here you get the actual errors when you have an issue. So it would say complete with errors up here, and right here it would say fatal error, and then it would give you the actual error message that that it encountered. And it will do that. I'm just having a hard time getting it to throw the error right now, and I don't know why. But I'm going to move on real quick because I've got a really cool demo to show you. It worked in the last one, so if you go look at the last webinar I did that's on the site, it worked really well. Exclusions. You can exclude things manually here with a comma delimited list. I think it's a comma delimited list, and that even takes like expressions. So just like other routines out there, I can mix them as well. I can say minion or minion % or whatever, right? And it would get any of that out of there. But we go one step further, and we allow you to use regex expressions to exclude databases. So instead of having a new job where you have to exclude databases on certain days, or you have to do this, or you have, so we just allow you to put some exclusions via regex in a table. So let's see, we're still doing statement only equals 1. So let's do this, and you can see we've got all these Minion databases in here, and I want to exclude them. And this is all valid regex. If you don't know regular expressions, I can't teach it to you now. I can just give you a couple examples, but this is a really advanced function. But what this says is I want to exclude for reindex, and you can already see that by having reindex in there, I'm also going to have the same thing for backup and checkDB. And I want to exclude anything that has the word minion in it. So now when I run this again, it takes a couple extra seconds because it's got to do the regex stuff. But now you can see all of the Minion databases. As they come and go and they have the word minion in them, they're going to be excluded. And that is without creating any extra jobs. Let's go ahead and truncate that table, and let's look at a better example. So I want to look at anything. See, I've got all those DBs in there, but I've got one that's dated. So I've got DB1, DB2, all the way through 25, and I've got this one that's dated, and I've got this one that's dated. But you notice how this one is DB012 or 0122 and then 2014. So 0122 and then 2014 and then dated. So these are really weird combinations here. So let's say that I want to get rid of the ones that have dates instead. So that will be this one right here. And notice how this is a very complicated looking regex expression that I'm using here. But when I run this, not only should my minions come back, it takes a couple extra seconds when you're doing that much regex. Shouldn't take that many more seconds though. I'm killing it because I have managed to hang something. Let's try that again. There we go. So now you can see that I've got all my DBs, but the two that were dated, except the 012, the ones that were dated are now gone. So the ones that have database followed by a date, and you notice how that date either included a dash or didn't include a dash. So it could be just a scrunched up date like that, or it can include a dash like that, or a period. So it's actually pretty cool. Let's go ahead and truncate that again. Now I want to get rid of anything that is where's the second one? So now I want to get rid of the ones that are followed by a number or followed by a date. So let me include that one, and you can see that I'll have a slightly different output. There we go. And so you see the ones with the dates came back, but the one that had the number, the 022 followed by a date, is now gone. And so now one final one, I'm going to exclude both of them, whether it has a number or doesn't have a number followed by a date. So I'm going to include that one. And it doesn't really matter. I could put all of these guys in there. You can have as many regex expressions as you want. So you see now all of the special ones are gone, and I've kept all of the DBs followed by numbers. And this is stuff that you absolutely cannot do with like expressions. So there's a lot of very powerful stuff in here, and those look like big, long, scary regexes. And they actually kind of are. But you could put 50 of those regex expressions in there to cover different things. And the reason I did this is because a lot of times we get those systems where devs like to date. They like to date different databases in different ways, and they all have their different little naming conventions. And you don't necessarily want those being part of your reindex routine, right? You just want them. You just want them to be excluded, but they create a new one every week or every month, something like that, and you don't want to constantly be in there messing with it, so you can create a regex expression that will encompass anything that they ever put in there for their naming convention, and then you can just forget about it. So it's really handy when it comes to those rolling databases like that, right? Okay, let's fragment this one more time, and let's see what we're supposed to be talking about now. Okay, so this, I wanted to show you the live insight, and this one's really nifty as well. This is a special version that I wrote of the reindex routine that just has some wait fors in there so that we can slow it down and I can show you some of the logging that you're going to encounter. So let's go ahead and run this guy. Oh, that's right. I didn't create it from the last time I dropped everything. Hold on. Yes, I turn British when I have to do something. And let me go to a demo. There we go. Let me go. Let me comment that guy out. There we go. Okay, that should work. All right, so like I said, this is just a special version with some wait fors in there so we can slow down the logging and take a look. Now when I come through here, and let's look at both of these logging tables together, you can see here that it's configuring run, configuring tables to process down on the bottom. So this is your top level view and this is your detailed view. And here it says gathering fragmentation stats, and here it shows you which one it's on. It's on 3 of 19, which is this table, which is this index on this table. I run that again, now it's on 9 of 19. And here, again, is just your high-level view. What am I doing? I'm gathering frag stats. Well, which one am I on? And here I'm on 14 of 19. So we're just cruising through there. And I've always found this to be very hypnotizing, to sit here and watch the routine go through all of these tables and know exactly what it's doing. And now it's processing this index, and now it's deleting its table history. Now that one's complete and it's processing this index, and now it's deleting its table history, and now it's processing this index, and you can see that at the top it just says processing tables. But if you want to sit here and watch it crawl through all of these, you're more than welcome to. I think it's a lovely little venture, don't you?
It's fun.
Okay. And I'll do this one more time. There we go. And you can see that the ones that aren't being processed yet are still in queue, and we've got this many more to go. Okay. I've got one more thing to talk about, and I've kind of got to wait for this thing to finish before I do. Maybe I'll kill it.
Let me ask you a couple questions while you wait.
Sure.
Does XP command shell have to be enabled for the Minion tools to work?
Yes.
What do you do to help not hammer the transaction log for large indexes? Are there delays?
What do I do to not hammer the transaction log for large indexes? Are there delays? You mean like delays between the tables?
I will have to have him reply back to answer you. I'm assuming what he's worried about is I have a really large index. Is rebuilding is going to hammer my transaction log. Is there anything you're doing to help with that?
Yeah, you could do a, you could switch the database into bulk mode before you finished, before you do that, before you process the database. I suppose you could switch it into bulk logged before you do that, before you process that table. You could do it as a pre-code and then do a post-code to set it back to full when the table is finished. But that's an interesting concept to do that for a single table. I would I usually just set it into bulk mode when the database finishes, and then set it back when it's done. So there's a setting in the table that'll do in the settings DB table that allows you to pick the recovery model you want for that run. But if you wanted it done at a table level, then you need to write that pre and post code yourself.
Any plans for a GUI interface at any point?
No, it's written by DBAs for DBAs.
Let's see. Why does XP command shell have to be enabled?
Because there are functions that we use PowerShell for, and I can't remember right now if I use those same functions to get the errors as well. But right now the regex requires PowerShell, which requires command shell, and I can't remember if I use command shell for anything else. But there are some things that are best done through command shell.
Would you happen to have time to rediscuss the prep only and run prep functionality? Explain that again.
That's what's coming up next, assuming this guy is complete. He should be. Yes, he is complete. So one of my favorite features is the prep only. And while we talk about this, I'm going to fragment this again. So what I find quite often is the need for people to say stop the reindexing after an hour or after 2 hours, right? A lot of people are really enamored with that feature, and I've never found it that useful. And one of the biggest reasons is because it just doesn't do what it's intended to. The problem with that feature is that if I check the time and it's 5 minutes before time, if it's a minute and 50, if it's an hour and 55 minutes, and I run the next reindex because it's not over the time yet, well, what if that next reindex takes an hour and a half? So those features never do what they're supposed to do. I've got a nice discussion on this. We've got a comparison doc between us and another popular one out there, and we have this discussion in there where where that feature just doesn't act like you would want it to act. And when what you really want to do is make sure of one of two things: A, that the tables get processed in the order you need. And I find with everybody I've talked to, when it really boils down to it, it's not the fact that the tables are being reindexed during production. It's that the really important tables might accidentally get hit during production. So if you can order the tables you want, if you can pick the exact order you want the tables to go in, a lot of that flies away. As well, and this is the prep only feature, as well, on large databases, especially with even large tables, it can take a long time to gather the frag stats. And if you've only got 2 hours or say 4 hours to run your reindex, and you spend an hour and a half of that even just pulling the frag stats, then that eats a lot into your maintenance. So what we do is we allow you to run in what we call prep only mode, and you would run this earlier in the day. This is another situation where we can't get around having a separate job, but we're working on that for version 2. So when I run this in prep only mode, what that does is it saves those fragmentation details into this table, and then it uses those details when the reindex runs. So what you would do is you would switch it to prep only equals 0 and then run prepped equals 1, and then it'll use those stats that are from that table that you gathered earlier today, and now your entire maintenance window is spent doing maintenance instead of spending half of it finding out the maintenance that you need to do. What else?
Well, I know we're way over. We're 10 minutes over.
Yeah, I know, that's last time.
But we still have 150 people here, so I'm going to assume with 150 people still hanging around, there probably may be some interest to still hang around and answer some questions. So
I'll talk as long as you want.
All right. Unfortunately, I do get paid for other work, so I'll have to catch you at some point. But while I'm there, is it possible to change the order of reindexing so it starts with the most fragmented indexes?
Yes. it's not built into the routine, but it's one of those workarounds that we blogged on. So yes, you can even do it by the heaviest used indexes, or by the tables with the highest row count. Again, it's not built into the routine, and we're working on that for version 2. But right now, there's a very nifty workaround that just plays with the reordering of them based off of some criteria that you put. So the way that would look is you would enter the tables, or maybe even just the important tables that you're interested in, right? You would enter those into the settings table, and then you would run a query beforehand that reordered them based off of the criteria, so based off of row count or based off of frag count or something like that. So yeah, it's possible. It's just not native. But like I said, we are working on that.
Can I control down to the index level to only reindex certain indexes on a table?
Not currently. I thought about doing that for version 1, but I really wanted to see how the market bore out for that. So in version 2, we're already halfway through coding the index portion of this. So version 2, you will see absolutely everything you see here at the database and the table level. You'll see it at the index and the partition level as well. So we're not only going to do that, but we're going to blow it out of the water and give you some stuff that that a lot of people don't. So yeah, definitely invest in this, and when version 2 comes out later this year, then you'll have full reign over the index level.
How can you estimate how much space is needed for a 5 trillion row table?
I don't know. Next.
Most important question. Do you have to use an admin account named GRU?
Yes. No.
Minions GRU. Haha.
Yeah,
All right. What if the database is within an availability group? Then you can't set the compatibility mode to bulk log, right?
Correct.
Let's see. Okay. So we've beaten around the bush with a competing product a million times here, right? And more so in the questions and answers as well. But this one, I'm almost going to answer this one myself. So he says, I have all the scripts installed on production. Can I run Minion in conjunction with it? Now I'm going to say, bad idea to run two things doing the same thing. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, well, I get that they would want to like compare them side by side, and what I suggest if you want to do that would be to like run one week and then run the other week.
Yep, do one at a time.
Yeah, you couldn't run them consecutively because you would get deadlocking errors on the tables as they processed and huh? Yeah, I mean concurrently. What did I say?
Consecutively.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't run them concurrently, and I wouldn't run them consecutively either because the first one would do all the reindexing and the second one wouldn't have anything to do. So
that's exactly what I was about to bring up. If you did one right after the other, it wouldn't do you any good. It'd make one product falsely look awesome.
If you want to test them side by side, do one week and then do the other one the other week. We don't conflict with. I mean, we're not gonna. We don't have anything in there that's gonna mess up his routine. But I think if you look at our logs, I mean, even looking at the difference in the logging. If you look at the difference between our logs and his logs, the differences are a world apart. It's just there's a phenomenal difference in the amount of logging that we do. We give you a lot more information, and how do I say this? We scale a lot better because the more databases you have and the more specialized configurations you have, the more jobs you have to create with Ola's routine. And with our routine, you almost never have to create a new job.
Is there an option to stop the job if your transaction is like, say, 80% used?
Oh, if the log is 80% used?
Right.
No.
Well, let's see.
I'm on the fence about that feature. Jen, if you'll write that down. I'll think about the viability of something like that because the problem is there would be no way to stop it and continue on to the next table. So if you hit a really big table where the log that fills up the log and you want to stop it and then move on. Once you stop the routine is stopped. So that's a very difficult thing to do.
Same guy with the 5 trillion row table. He says there's always inserts and deletes. Will we need to stop the applications while the index is being rebuilt?
Not if you do it online.
Any estimate on when version 2 will be available?
No, because I'm finishing up. I've still got some work left to do on backup, and then I move to CheckDB, and then I move back around to Reindex 2. So no real estimate. I would like to think before the end of the year, but I'm not going to promise that. Backup is absolutely phenomenal. You and I were talking about it earlier today, and Ryan, I think you can say that some of the features that I was giving you were just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, there's some definite cool stuff coming.
We are blowing backup out of the water, and CheckDB we've got our list for that too, and CheckDB is absolutely phenomenal as well. It's a beautiful thing already.
Let's see. Does this handle multiple servers from a single instance, or does it only handle the server it's installed on?
No, only the server it's installed on.
Okay, I think that's going to be it for now.
Okay.
Because we're 18 past. So, man, thank you for coming on and talking for us today. I know you poured your heart into this tool, and it's some fantastically cool stuff. So I imagine you're going to get some amazing feedback on some stuff because it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions or if they have any feature requests, you can go back to our site. Let me see if I can find it here.
Yeah, I should have had you pull it up while you're answering questions.
Go to our site here. You can report a bug or feature request, and we'll put it in the queue. And if it's something we can get to, then we will get to. If we're not like Microsoft, we won't say that we have to have like 2,000 requests for something before we'll do something about it. If we honestly think something is a good idea and only one person suggests it, then we'll do it. We're very responsive, and I take questions about this all the time. We're very responsive with our bug report, very responsive with workarounds and fixes, and why did we do something this way or why did we do something that way. Yeah, by all means, ask away. That's what we're here for.
Fantastic.
And admire our little Minion-y guy here because he's cute and he costs us a lot of money.
Yeah, he is pretty cool. That's a good logo. All right, man. Well, thanks again for speaking for us. We look forward to having you back sometime in the future. And thanks, everybody, for joining today. We will get things posted for next month here fairly soon, and we'll see everybody next time. Thank you.